Good to see you, Mary Louise. Good to see you, Mary Louise. I'm glad you made it in time. Let's start. Hold on, let me get my. Right. We're going to go ahead and start the Community Health and Safety Task Force meeting for April 18th, 2023 at 5:44. Can we get a roll call, please?
Absolutely. Thank you, Councilwoman Rene Villarreal, and welcome everyone. Roll call, Councilwoman Rene Villarreal,
Present.
Emily Cottonbach,
Present.
Marcela Diaz,
I'm here.
Bruce Finger,
Here.
Mary Louise Romero,
Here.
and I believe Annie and Monica are excused, and Chris will be joining us shortly, most
Yes.
likely, correct?
And Gino
Gino is
Zamora.
also excused.
Yes.
Yeah, and we would
Thanks.
love to welcome our guest presenter, Dr. Sanchez. Thank you for being here. And of course, a warm welcome to our community guest, Sarah Brent. Back to you, Councilwoman.
Thank you, Valeria. I'll move on to the approval of the minutes. We have two to approve. First is March 7th, 2023. Were there any changes to the minutes? Seeing none, what's the wish of the committee task force?
I vote to approve the minutes for March 7th.
Thank you, Bruce.
I second.
We got a second. Any other discussion? Seeing none, can we get a roll call, Valeria?
Absolutely. Councilwoman Rene Villarreal,
Yes.
Emily Cottonbach,
Yes.
Marcela Diaz,
Yes.
Bruce Finger,
Yes.
and Mary Louise Romero.
Yes.
You've got
Excellent.
approved minutes,
Great.
Councilwoman.
Thank you, thank you. And moving on to the minutes from, I just lost my agenda, where'd it go? For April 4th, 2023. Are there any changes from task force members or staff? All right, what is the wish of the task force?
I move to approve.
I second.
All right, we have a motion and second. Any other discussion? Seeing none, Valeria, can we get a roll call?
Absolutely. Councilwoman Rene Villarreal,
Yes.
Marcela Diaz,
Yes.
Bruce Finger,
Yes.
Emily Cottonbach,
Yes.
Mary Louise Romero.
Yes.
You have approved minutes for April 4, Councilwoman.
Excellent, thank you. Moving on to communications from staff. Oh, I skipped one. Communications from the
Co-chairs.
co-chairs. I don't have anything. I'm just feeling really sick still trying to, so I'll probably just not say much today as least as possible. So I'm gonna pass it over to staff and Valeria if there's anything they want to share with us.
For me, none at this time, just as you know, sending gentle reminders as we are working on identifying recommendations and making sure we're streamlining them into the work plan. I do have that framework for the one that was discussed the last meeting, so I will be updating that in the days to come for all of you to make revisions as you deem necessary. That's really it for me on my end. Anyone else?
I think Julie was on, she had a death in the family, so she had to leave us, so sending her prayers. Let's see, I'm gonna move on then to presentations. We have our long-awaited guest, Dr. Sanchez, that will be presenting on the community engagement survey update, and he's from the Center for Social Policy. Did I get that right? Sometimes I think people mix you all up with the Center for Civic Policy, which is two very different things, but Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's just me.
No, you got it right. Center for Social Policy. Thank you.
Excellent. Great. I'll hand it over you to Dr. Sanchez. It's great to see you again.
Absolutely. It's great to see everyone. I hope everyone's well. I hope you start to feel better, Counselor. I apologize. I was not able to be with you at your last meeting. I was sick with strep throat, and although I was feeling good enough to come on and present, my voice was completely shot. So I would have had to try to type out my responses and show you some slides. But the upside of not making that meeting, making this one, is we've made some progress on the open access survey. So there's actually a little bit of preliminary summary evidence to provide to you, as well as kind of what the next steps are in the research process, which I think will help you all start to map out, when those exciting recommendations in our timeline might be ready for all the data to be summarized to help with that process of really writing up what the policy recommendations are in light of the findings. So just to give you some context, if folks don't recall what the overall idea was with the rest of data collection, remember the last time I presented to you, it was the random sample that my team at BSP Research conducted of 300 Santa Fe residents randomly drawn to be representative of the overall city's population, et cetera. And you might recall that we were intending to augment that survey with results from an open access survey of harder to reach populations, right? The goal being people we know who would be less likely to participate in a survey that was randomly selected, filling in gaps for particular segments of the population that we knew we just might not catch through traditional survey method approaches. So that we've made some major progress over the last week. We're up to 48 completed surveys through that open access format, which is, I think, approaching what our original target was. I think we were looking at 50 people. So we're already almost to that point. And so we might consider leaving that open as long as you all tell me to. We can leave that survey open and allow more completes to come in. Note that what we're doing for incentives with the open access survey, rather than incentivize every respondent, it's a raffle, a $50 gift card, and we're doing one every 10 completes. So I just issued out 3 more randomly selected respondents from that survey who will be getting a $50 gift card in the mail within the next few days or so. So just to remind folks of what the process looks like. Probably most important for us to think about is, are we reaching our goal of reaching the harder to reach segments of the population through the open access survey? So just a few data points. I was literally just pulled this data about an hour before the meeting. So all this is very fresh. And I was just literally staring at that right before I jumped on to Zoom. But the good news is, I think we're definitely achieving our goal of making sure that we augment the random survey with some harder to reach segments of the population. Just some data points to back that up. Of those 48 completed interviews, 26 of those have been done in Spanish. That's 53% of that 48 were Spanish speaking respondents who took the survey completely in Spanish. 27 was at 58% of that 48 were self-identified immigrants. So I think through this process, and thank you folks on this meeting for helping to distribute the survey to the right segments of the population, we've definitely, I think, already reached what the immigrant segment of the population looked like from that 300 randomly drawn. So that's definitely going to augment and really bolster that segment of the Santa Fe community. We had 10 of those 48 respondents with residents under the age of 30. Folks might recall that was a weak spot in the randomly drawn sample, which makes sense just given the city of Santa Fe's overall demographics. 18 of the 48 make less than $20,000 annually in overall household income. So we're definitely reaching our goal of augmenting what we got with the random sample with a lower income segment of the population in this open access venue. And probably most importantly, 7 of the 48 respondents indicated that they've had prior experiences with the criminal justice system, 4 who have spent time in jail or prison themselves, and 3 who have been on court-ordered probation. Just to give you some context, we had 0 from those segments of the population with the randomly drawn. So already I think there's been high value of augmenting the random sample with this open access version of the survey. And just note that when we complete this segment of the project, and I'll leave this open as long as you all tell me to, collecting more data from the open access survey, we'll merge that with responses from the random sample and produce a set of results for you. You've seen what the overall top line results look like, right? The percentage of the overall population across every single question in the survey, we'll give you essentially 3 columns. The total percentage that has both the merged open access and randomly drawn sample, as well as columns and percentages for every single question for the open access survey, as well as the random. So you can directly compare what those results look like, as well as just having the overall percentage. So I think this has been successful. I'm very happy with where we are at this point. And hopefully as we collect more data through this component, if we reach 100, right, then we could say at the end of the day, we reached 400 city residents through the survey alone, right? So I think that might be a nice target if we want to think about keeping this open until we hopefully reach 100 completes. I'll give you a little bit of an idea of what the preliminary findings look like. Again, as we think about 48 completes in the open access format. So just to give you an idea of how they compare, I think is the best way to think about those 48 completes with the randomly drawn sample. So in some areas, and I think this is a positive, really of the performance of the random sample, there's a lot of commonality across these 2 groups of Santa Fe residents on a number of different issues within the survey. For example, almost identical satisfaction levels with living in Santa Fe. I think they were within 2 percentage points across both groups of residents. And addressing affordable housing is the #1 issue for both groups. When we asked them, what do you want Santa Fe local officials to address? So a lot of commonality in some of those big picture questions. There was almost identical percentages for the percent who are worried about crime, and almost identical percentages of folks who feel, when we asked them, is there more or less safety, or do you feel more or less safe in the city of Santa Fe than you did a year ago? Almost identical. No statistical differences between the 2 groups of survey respondents, which again, I think is helpful for us to think about the performance of the random sample. And across both groups, there's overwhelming support for rehabilitation focused programs across both groups. In most cases, there was only slightly higher support among the harder to reach communities across those specific items in the survey. And you might remember we did a few items in that area. We asked folks, right, we read them different approaches to kind of rehabilitation focused programs. We also asked people, do you think that folks who have committed a crime are able to be rehabilitated? Across all those items, only slightly higher support among harder to reach communities, but again, almost identical. And overwhelming support, if you remember the presentation that I gave off the random sample. However, and this is an important distinction, there are some differences in attitudes and experiences across both groups that, again, I think speak to the value of adding the open access survey to our overall research design. I'll just give you a few examples of some of those important areas where we do see some distinction. For example, the harder to reach segments of the population are much more concerned with protecting immigrants' rights. 43% among this population, which was actually the highest concern when we asked folks just to identify what they think are the most important issues for the city of Santa Fe to address. Protecting immigrants was the #1 issue for the harder to reach segment of the population, where I don't believe it was even in the top 10 for the random sample. And that makes sense given the demographics. Remember, over half of the hard to reach segment of the survey so far have been immigrants themselves. So it makes sense intuitively that they're going to be more concerned with protecting immigrants' rights given their underlying demographic and their identities. And the hard to reach segment of the population is much less concerned about homelessness on that item. I think 12% among the harder to reach population said that was one of their top issues they wanted the city of Santa Fe to address, compared to 31% among the random sample. So we do see some distinction across both groups when we ask them what's their highest priority, if you want to think about it that way in terms of public policy response. Furthermore, over half, at 53%, of the harder to reach segment of the sample, that 48 complete so far, indicate that people who live in Santa Fe do not have enough influence on decisions regarding public safety, which is significantly higher than the random sample. So my interpretation of that is this harder to reach segment of the community, more likely to be Spanish speaking, more likely to be immigrant, more likely to be people who have had direct interactions with the criminal justice system, themselves do not feel like they have enough agency or input into the policymaking process, specifically when we think about public safety and crime, right? I think that makes sense again intuitively and reinforces the value of adding that segment to the research design, because these are the people that we did not feel we heard enough from, and obviously we're getting their input, and it gives us a little bit of a different perspective on access points to elected officials and access points to decision makers as it relates to crime, public safety, well-being, et cetera. And finally, hard to reach communities are twice as likely to report that they have been a victim of crime themselves and are much less likely to report a crime to police when they are a victim of crime. And furthermore, are less likely to indicate that they feel comfortable contacting the police when they need them, both police and overall public safety officials. So again, I think hopefully this gives you an idea that we're on the right track with collecting more data to augment the random sample. And I want to conclude this small presentation with just reminding you what the next steps in the research process are going to be. Recall that in addition to the survey, we're also going to do a lot of qualitative data collection, and we're lining up in the next 2 weeks to hopefully accomplish the vast majority of the qualitative data collection. And the intention in terms of substantive focus is to dig a little bit deeper into the major themes of the survey. We welcome input on anything you really want us to track in the qualitative data. That's going to be a mixture of focus groups and in-depth personal interviews. We recognize that some individuals might not feel comfortable speaking with our team in a focus group setting, may want to do that more one-on-one. So anybody that we come across who says, you know what, I'm willing to talk with you folks, but I want to do it individually, our team will meet them where they are. If they want to do that over Zoom, awesome, we can do that. If they want to meet in person, we're definitely willing to do that. Thank you, Marcella from Somos, for volunteering your office space in Santa Fe for our team to be able to access to complete that aspect of data collection. Our goal is to touch at least 40 Santa Fe residents before the end of May through either focus groups or interviews. Among that target of 40, we want to do at least one focus group exclusively in Spanish and no less than 2 focus groups with teenagers or young adults under the age of 18. Remember, that was an overall target of our research design, is to make sure we reach young people. And so we think we can do that with at least 2 focus groups specifically targeting that age group. We're working closely with members of the community, some of you on this Zoom today, so thank you in advance for your help in connecting us with potential participants. And our goal is obviously to make sure our recruitment in the qualitative data focuses on segments of the community who are not likely to see participate in the survey. So again, it's similar to the open access survey of filling any gaps that we feel we had with the random sample survey, with this deeper dive into some of the same themes that we covered in the survey. In terms of thinking about an overall timeline, we're hoping that by the end of the month of May, we'll have all data collected. So it gives us a couple of weeks to analyze the full range of both quantitative and qualitative data, to provide a summary of the major findings from all that data collection effort, and a written report and a slide deck. And we'll work with you to identify what the overall policy recommendations may look like. And hopefully all of that, right, will give you enough time to do your refining, reach back out to us if you have any questions, you want any feedback on the recommendations, so that we hopefully have all this done well before our overall deadline, which I believe was July 1st. So I feel very good with where we're at in this segment of the process. Thanks to all of you who have been helpful along the way. Obviously, we've got some work to do ahead of us, but I feel very, very well where we are in our timeline at this point. So I will pause there, see if there's any questions, any follow-up comments, anything you need our team to chase and provide to you if you have additional questions.
Thank you, Dr. Sanchez. That was a whirlwind of information. I think the one thing I was curious about, just to ask you right off the bat, for the qualitative data collection with different groups and the listening sessions, that you'll be using the same questions as the survey, or different?
I would say the same overall themes, right? So if you remember, there were some themes, for example, that asked respondents, how would you define a vibrant community here in Santa Fe? So like within that broad theme, right, the little bit of a difference with how we think about dealing with focus groups or interviews is, I'll write up the script for our moderators that will be conducting the interviews that touch on those broad themes, but give them a lot of leeway to chase different directions that come up in a focus group conversation, right? So if that gives you an idea, we'll have like, here's our set of questions we want to make sure get asked. But these things, if you've ever participated in a focus group or watched them, right, can quickly turn in a direction, and we might spend 30 minutes on a topic that was only very lightly touched in the survey. That might be the one thing that deviates a little bit from the survey that's, I guess, fully scripted from the onset.
Great. And I think in terms of those like details, I'm trying to recall exactly what Director Ochoa was wanting to understand a nuanced question. And I need to refer back to my notes about it, but things like trying to get to the kind of more core details with groups, is that kind of what you're planning on doing with the qualitative? the
Yeah.
listening Sessions?
Yeah, think about in broad strokes, the major difference between quantitative data like the survey and the qualitative is in the qualitative interviews, we're trying to dig much deeper into the why, right? So the survey tells us a lot about what people think about various issues, you know, do they support rehabilitation programs, et cetera. And the focus group, what we want to do is drill down into much more specifics. So if any of you have very specific, let's say rehabilitation programs that you've seen modeled in other cities or other states, or that you have, you know, plans to potentially implement in Santa Fe, those are things that we can put in front of focus group respondents to get much more specific reactions to those particular programs. And we really try to dig deeper into why. Why do people feel the way that they do about a particular issue? For example, I'll give you one case point, right? We saw in the open source survey that a larger segment of that population, which is going to be very similar to who we target for the qualitative data, don't feel comfortable contacting police or public safety when they actually need them, right? We know that from the survey, right? A segment of the population doesn't feel comfortable. What we want to drill much deeper into with the qualitative data, why do people have those feelings and what would make them feel more comfortable contacting police? Just as one example of what will be a little bit of a deviation from what we did with the survey. Hopefully, Counselor, that makes sense or answers your question.
Does, yes, thank you so much. I'm opening it up to the rest of the task force members. If you had any other questions for Dr. Sanchez about process. I don't know if you're saying any of the groups yet that you'd be doing that, or are we waiting on that?
Just starting that conversation as we speak in the last couple of days, we're starting to line up, you know, what potential respondents do we have? In essence, I think if folks have suggestions or have contacts with folks that they really think we should reach out to, send those my way, and my team will run with scheduling those, run with all the logistics of that. Mostly just making sure that we cover the right groups that you all want covered.
Okay, that's great. Let's see, Marcela has her hand up.
This is a question. I'm about to send you again in one chart, Dr. Sanchez, the contact information for.
And Gabe is fine. Y'all know me. I'm the most informal academic y'all gonna come up
Okay.
with.
For Somos, for Chainbreaker, for Mary Louise's restorative justice program. And I wanted to ask about that because your people can talk to her directly on setting that up. But her folks are under 18. You're good. I just don't remember. You had some issues with setting up for youth, but you're all good now, and that shouldn't be a problem to do the under 18 focus groups.
Yes, I got one more form I've got to get approved from UNM IRB to do the data collection with under 18 population. I tagged them today. They said there's no reason why I can't move forward with data collection. I just got to get this one form signed off on before we close out everything. But I've got a clearance to be able to move forward with that.
For some reason, and you can certainly share this, Mary Louise, even with the open link, because she was going to work with students just for the open link part, and it didn't work because of some firewall. I don't know if that's the right word, but some barrier that the Santa Fe Public School internet system has. And so I'm wondering if your team can work with her to figure that out.
Yeah, absolutely. Ms. Romero, if you want to drop me an email and let me know what the challenge or the issue is, I'll get with, I'm not an expert in the IT mechanics of the behind the scenes stuff, so I'll have to talk to my team to figure out how we might be able to figure out a path to do that. But I guess worst case scenario, and Marcella might remember this from another project that we've done together, when we ran into some of those issues, we literally went old school and printed out a series of surveys, had folks complete those, and then my team entered them into the data. So that's our last case scenario. That's something that we could definitely entertain doing.
And then you may have already said this, but for everybody, I think you said this, but I'm not sure. It's $100 per person per focus group.
That's correct.
So that includes youth, that includes anyone. And it's not a raffle. If anyone, those 40 people get $100 each. So let's sell it.
Yes. Whether that's an interview or a focus group, any of the qualitative data, right? Because that obviously takes more time from people's life than to fill out a quick 15-minute survey. So we do incentivize that at a higher rate.
Beautiful. Marcella, are you complete with your questions? Great. Mary Louise, I see your hand up. Or
Yes,
Chris? Oh,
thank you.
course.
Dr. Sanchez, we did have a problem logging in, but that's because the Santa Fe Public Schools has their own stuff going on. But honestly, I need to tell the team here that I probably can't get the same students to attempt to do it, but I can get 2 focus groups for sure. I'm thinking that I can get one at Capitol and another one at Santa Fe High. And so I can connect with you directly, Dr. Sanchez, so we can talk about that.
Awesome. Excellent. Yeah. And we actually have 2 members of our research team that are from Santa Fe that'll be fielding these groups. So I'll make sure if I can get one that's an alum of one of those high schools at each setting. I know some of those nuances help. So I'll after I speak with you, Ms. Romero, I'll figure out the logistics on my end to see who's the best person to fill those 2 groups. Appreciate your help.
Beautiful. Thank you, Mary Louise, for all that effort. And Chris, did I see you wave your hand? Did you have a question? Just wanted to confirm.
Yeah, Gabe, thanks for being here tonight. Really appreciate it and appreciate all you've done so far and what you're about to do. What my question was, I had presented YouthWorks as a group of kids that you might be able to talk to. And these are probably teenagers between 17 and 19, some getting up there to 20. And, they've had issues, not some with the law, some with just trying to get through life. And when I've spoken to them, they have a harder time, I think, with older people than they do with maybe people their own age. And you might have already touched on this, but do you have, are you taking that into consideration? Do you have younger facilitators that can talk to some of these kids?
Yeah, absolutely. That's key, right? Descriptive representation for us and data collection is always right at the forefront. So it won't be me. I don't think of myself as that old, but I get it, right? Like I'm not as young as I once was. So it'll be PhD students of mine, 2 of which are from Santa Fe that are, one's probably 23, the other one maybe 22. So much closer to the youth in terms of age and experience. And for me, whenever I can put folks in front of focus groups that share some of the same lived experiences, whether that's being from Santa Fe, graduating from similar high schools, whatever it might be, that obviously opens up better conversation because people have that immediate connection and feel a little bit more comfortable having conversations. So we've definitely thought about that, counselor, and every time we can, it doesn't always work out so well when we have like the right demographics from our team to collect data. But in this instance, I think we're going to do really well.
All right, so I sent a list of a couple youth groups. YouthWorks is one. Did you get that? Because if not, Marcella just asked on the chat, but I can send you that.
Yes, I think Mrs. Sanchez, Julie Sanchez, I do believe, I'll check my email, but I'm pretty sure she did send me the list and YouthWorks was on there.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I'm putting everything, I don't have to, but I'm putting the rest of our contact information for focus groups in one doc for Gabe. But if he already has YouthWorks, that way he can just go down the list. I won't add YouthWorks. That's why I was asking. Like who specifically should he be contacting? But it sounds like he already has it.
Yeah, I'll pull in my email right now, so I'll take a look right quick.
Thank you, team.
Marcella or whoever has that list, is there groups you think we're still missing, maybe?
Well, I'm sure Julie came up with another list. I don't know what that list is, but I have the contact person and their phone number for Somos, for Chainbreaker, for Mary Louise, for Drug Policy Alliance, for Monica, and that's it. If there's
And
any,
err on the side of more, even if it's already been sent my way, I'd rather have more rather than less.
So if you guys, if anyone here has another group of hard to reach, it sounds like we need some more like formerly incarcerated folks who are going through the system.
We've got Emily with a question. Go ahead, Emily.
Actually, just a comment. So under Drug Policy Alliance, we're reaching out. We've been having conversations with the Mountain Center. So those folks, I think will be really, cross a lot of different issue areas. Obviously, it's a harm reduction program. So these are people who either currently or formerly use drugs. And the other group, I was going to reach out to Andres Mercado about the ARU and the MIHO, because they were interested, and I think some of them might have done the survey, but I think having some either one-on-one focus groups or, one-on-one interviews or a focus group might be really great, and that's another group that's definitely hard to reach. So I just wanted to share. Those are the two groups I'm going to be talking with.
And one
Thank you,
upside,
Emily.
real briefly, one upside for Councilor Rivera, I asked one of our facilitators who's from Santa Fe, Yazalin Cordova, to name any orgs that she's connected to that might be helpful. And one she highlighted that she's worked with in the past is YouthWorks. So I think that would be a relatively easy, focus group or set of interviews for us to be able to complete.
Oh, and Gabe, wasn't there communities and schools?
Communities and schools, Earth Care, and YouthWorks were the three that Yaselin's worked with and has already reached out to them to, start conversations about how we might be able to connect.
That's awesome.
Any other questions for Dr. Sanchez?
Not a question, but I just want to know what the group thought about, like, I sent in Boys and Girls Club, but I'm not sure those are necessarily at-risk kids. And then same with the Mayor's Youth Advisory. They're an important group, but I don't see them as kids that are really at risk or in jeopardy. So I don't know if, how the group feels about including those two.
I would just want to say, different communities, but Boys and Girls Club for me as a kid, where I was growing up, and the violence I was experiencing was a lifeline. So there might be some children, some youth there that, is experiencing some challenges or at risk that they might not know about. I don't know, just putting it out there.
No, appreciate that. Thank you. Anybody else have an opinion?
About Boys and Girls Club or
Both, either or.
the Mayor's Youth Advisory board members? I don't know who's serves on that right now. But it tends to be high achieving students that have time to serve on a board. So I don't know if that's, I'm not sure. You all tell me, because I feel like there's some other populations and groups that we might be thinking about, and also other ethnic groups that we haven't, had access to, and maybe we need to think about that. Mary Louise, did you have a comment or question?
I just want to say that the last time that I talked about this, I kind of got shot down for it, but I just want to say this out loud, that when you choose the people that are on those committees, when you choose the people that go to the youth summits, they're always picking the kids that are high achievers. And I feel as though we're talking about the people's voices that don't really get heard. And so I just want to say out loud, there are some quiet people at the Boys and Girls Club or whatever, but I think that we need to engage with those that have experiences that would help us to better serve what we're trying to put on paper. I just have to put that out there.
And Counselor, on your suggestion of, I guess, racial and ethnic communities that we might not have touched, just one food for thought. One of the institutes that reports to me at UNM is a Native American Budget and Policy Institute. Their director, Dr. Carmela Roybals from Okewinge, and told me she has two teenage sons that live in Santa Fe that are both, in her words, juvenile delinquents. That's her words, not mine. So she told me if there was value, they could definitely convene a small focus group of their network of Native American youth. That's one group I'd say that I just checked the open source data. Even the open source data, we still don't really have a large enough Native American segment in the survey to say a whole lot about. So just food for thought. That's one group we could probably recruit and fill ourselves if there's value there.
Nancy Davis is in charge for the Santa Fe Public Schools of that community. And I know that she would completely be on board to get a group of students. But she's very engaged with serving those students. And I know that she could help us.
Excellent. I think that's she's a good resource. Nancy is also a graduate of Santa Fe High, Emily. Did you have another addition, Emily? And just know that when you're adding messages here on the chat, nobody can see them on the public, so someone should read them if you want to read them out loud.
Oh, yeah, Renee, I've been taking notes of these Emily's and or youth members with connection to at-risk communities. Yeah. If Emily and Gina want to speak a little more to what they included in the chat, otherwise I am definitely capturing it.
Just mentioned Three Sisters Collective. I'm wondering if anyone, I haven't worked with that group, but they might be a good group to reach out to if anyone has connections. And then Youth Shelters and Family Services.
And Bruce, sorry, I had too many things open in my screen. Bruce, did you have your hand up? Did you want to?
I can't find the icon to raise my hand.
It's
like,
okay, my
Mary
friend, go
Louise
for
did.
it.
So I just have a quick question. The doctor's looking for focus groups to survey. So why would you exclude kids from the Boys and Girls Club? Even though they may, be a little smart or whatever, they still may have had parental issues or issues with law enforcement or any other issues. That's all I got. I don't think they should be excluded, especially if they're looking for focus groups.
Actually, it was the contrary to that. We wanted the Boys and Girls Club to be part of the focus group. The question was the Mayor's Youth
misheard.
Advisory Board, which is made up of not very many members. So to me, I think we need to look at like Boys and Girls Club. There's a lot of youth right there. It's a good target, a good focused area. So yeah, that's what Mary Louise was saying, and I think Marcelo was saying too. So
I apologize, I misheard.
No problem.
And I think y'all are being smart at this. I mean, I'll use myself as an example. I consider myself a pretty high achieving youngster, but I also had an extensive juvenile record. So sometimes those two things aren't necessarily correlated.
I'm a pretty high achieving adult and I just never got caught. So.
Oh, I love it, Chris. Through the, I don't know much about these programs, but on a separate project, there's also True Kids, Twirl Towels, well, Towels is not relevant, and Youth Heartline. So I'll look up and see if Youth Heartline is out of Santa Fe, because these organizations also work with affected children. So youth, I should say. Let me see, and I'll share that with you, Dr. Sanchez, if it's relevant.
Appreciate that.
The one thing I'm thinking of is, but I need to think about this more, about maybe a group being organized around the Black community in Santa Fe. And Sunshine did say she would want to be part of that once we get to that point, as well as potentially Rashawn. So I don't know if you all think that that would be an avenue to explore.
Yes, but it has to be explored right away. Who's the best? Can you make
Yeah,
that happen tonight?
Yes.
Do I put an organization? What do I put in this chart for Gabe?
I don't know about an organization because there's a lot of different groups, including like young folks that they work with. There's youth programming that, I mean, I guess for lack of a better group, you could put Earthseed Black Arts Alliance for now. Earthseed Black Arts Alliance.
Black Arts Alliance. I'm putting you as the contact. Is that okay? Counselor?
Sure. Yeah.
And if I know Sunshine pretty well, I can reach out to her for ideas as well.
Actually, that would be great. I can reach out to Rashawn about it, but Sunshine was part of our group as a facilitator when we first started, and she said that she would be willing to, once we get to that point in this community engagement piece, that she'd be interested to potentially bring folks together that live in Santa Fe. And anyone else that has contacts
I
too.
think all this help is going to make sure this is a great overall project. Thank you.
Right. Any other questions, ideas? Marcela?
Does anyone have a good contact at maybe the Indigenous Center? I was just thinking about the lack of Indigenous representation as well. Gabe?
Yes.
Is there, I don't have contact with them. I don't know if they'd be willing to do something like this. Does anybody?
You can reach out to the board. There's a board member and there's also the director. They're both of their names is Karen, but Karen with a K, Radney Buller is her name, and I can type that. She's a board member, and then Karen with a C is the director, Caren. Karen.
I'm gonna share this Google Doc with you as well. What's the best email for me to put in the Google Doc for you so that you can just put that information in directly?
My city email.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other discussions or comments? No? Should we let Dr. Sanchez go?
Never. Gotcha.
Well, I'm excited about this piece of the work, and we have a lot of good information, and I think there'll be some overlap of things that we've talked about in our learning sessions and what community members are saying. So
Excellent. Well, I appreciate everybody's help. Thanks in advance for any contacts or leads. If we run into any important substantive questions, I'll definitely reach out before we start engaging in data collection.
excellent. Thank you, Dr. Sanchez.
Thank you all. Have a good evening.
You too.
And I did want to recognize that Gino Zamora's on, but he's in the airport, so he's been listening. So he is here. And safe travels to you, Gino.
Yeah.
Did we lose? Oh, there's Chris. I thought we lost Chris.
Chris is here.
I think let's see. We had planned to do working group breakouts. So I don't know if you have that capacity, Valeria, but
I
just
do.
curious if folks, I just need to send an email to my group. So we won't be meeting,
Mhm.
except Bruce. All I think I need from you is to remind me the dates that you said you were gonna have, you were out of commission. And maybe you could just text me those or email me if you want.
Well, Friday, I'm having my left shoulder replaced.
That's right.
So.
Well, we won't be meeting that soon anyway, because we're still in budget hearings, so.
Right, but I could meet on Zoom, if you're in a group in person, I can still be there in Zoom, but guesstimate about a month. It'll take me to where I can drive on my own.
Wow.
Oof, yes. Hope it goes well.
Me too.
Wishing you the best, Bruce.
Yes.
And, well, I had my right one done by the same doctor and it's pretty good, so.
Awesome. Well, I hope the same thing goes for the next shoulder.
Yep, me too.
So are you all, did the other working group want to meet in breakouts? You all meeting in breakouts or you already met? Yeah.
Can we meet for 5 minutes to talk about the focus group guides?
I've got the
Alrighty.
breakout room set up, so if the community engagement and alternative approaches wants to meet, it's ready to go in whenever you're ready.
We all feel good. Is there anything else anyone wants to share with the group?
Our next meeting, May 2nd, yes?
Yeah, let's talk about that. Do we want to meet in person or just do what we need to do with, all the other kind of other exterior stuff that's happening around us? And much
Go ahead, Marcela.
Thank you. I'm trying to follow the protocol. It's very hard. I just want to jump in. So do we have the next two? So the next meeting is May 2nd, maybe in person, maybe over Zoom. Is that what I'm gathering? And then basically I have a request. If we don't have other presentations, we would like to do 2 of our next meetings with presentations around, including starting May 1st, presentations on alternative or diversion programs, basically alternative diversion programs that may or may not include restorative justice components. And so Anna, who's actually on she was on the call, but I guess she left. She's helping us put together that presentation from Somos with different folks from different parts of the country that do community courts, etc. So we wanted to start that on May 2nd. If there's nothing else, we may want to do a second one, the meeting after. So we want to use May to help educate us in the community. And we want to bring in an interpreter so that we can bring in people from Somos or anybody from the community. We actually want more people than us just to hear that information. What do we think? Can we use May 2nd for that?
I think we have it open.
And if that's the case, it's going to be people from around the country. So if we're doing it in person, it would have to be over Zoom. But we would have to have the Zoom component, and then we would have to have an interpreter, which we can get from Somos to participate. And we would need the interpretation feature turned on the Zoom and all of that good stuff.
Interpretation or the captions or both?
Oh, Spanish language interpretation. So whoever
Gotcha,
sets
the
up
Spanish
Zoom, and
captions.
Julie, I'm sure has done it. So I can't imagine that it's not a thing already for the city. So
Right. Yeah, just wanted clarification. Thank you, Marcela. Go ahead, Emily.
Just thinking about our future meetings, are we going to have an opportunity to all get together to discuss and review the recommendations? Okay.
We need to, for sure. Yeah.
So just thinking that should be built in as well. But
Yeah, are we talking about at the end of like May 16th to do that? Or
it
no?
might be too early for our recommendations.
So let's see.
Maybe the first June meeting?
Well, technically, we're done, y'all, at June. Like, we're done as a working group. Our work ends in June with the resolution, and we extended it to June. And so that's what the kind of issue is right now.
Mhm.
I mean, the actual, what do you call it? The actual recommendations and the document and working on that, we can definitely refine that together. And that would be the like ultimate goal to get that to council. But having regular meetings like this, they end at the end of May, unless we extend our time. That's what Council Rivera and I were talking about last time. This time frame of our work to be completed. It's based on a resolution that says, you know, June is the time we finish our work.
Can we meet 3 times in May?
I think we can. I think Gabe also said that he felt like he had until July 1st to finish his work. So either we need to try to extend another month at least, or we all decide to continue our work, kind of just compiling everything and then give a final report sometime at the end of July. I don't know, Renee, what you feel about that?
No, I'm okay with that. I'm just saying like formal meetings like this on Zoom.
Right,
January, February, March, April, May, June. We finish at the end of June, right?
right.
So. And then when we're getting together to kind of talk, to refine those recommendations, it would be nice to do it in person.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm just thinking about the next few meetings and making sure that they're used wisely with the goal in mind to have recommendations that would come out of those, because that's what most of our listening sessions are about, like learning. And then it relates obviously back to the community engagement. So we can have presentations. I just want to make sure that whatever we're needing to do in the meantime, as Valeria reaches out to us consistently about putting things in documents as we move along, that we're not putting everything in at the last minute. There'll be some things we can add. But like as a group working, yeah, we just have to be cognizant of the time frame we have, the time we have in May and June.
Yeah. So does it sound like 3 meetings would be a good idea in May? Like,
How about we just continue down our regular schedule, and if we have to kind of do more meetings in June, that we all kind of informally agree that, you know, it might take more work than just what's part of the regular meeting list.
mhm.
It's not like we're getting paid for it, so it doesn't matter, you know. We volunteered for this, so yeah, we got to do it more, yeah.
Mhm.
Marcella, Emily, you guys have full-time jobs. I've tried to tell you to quit before, but you guys don't listen to me.
You're hilarious.
I'm okay meeting, and I mean, I think this is the most important part of just culminating all of
Mm,
couple of years, so I think it needs to be intentional and we need to set enough time aside, but at the same time, we also need to make sure we have all the feedback from the community. And I know that started later than we had hoped it would, and so it's really hard to put stuff in that document until we've seen it in its entirety. So that's really hard. I mean, we can say we're just going to take what we have and hopefully in the focus groups. And then if any, I don't know, Marcella, I think it just feels like it needs to be packaged in a way that we can compare it to our learning sessions in order to make those recommendations.
mhm.
It would be
And
interesting
I'm
to
feeling like if
see.
we have 4 more meetings, we have 5 more meetings before the end of June. And we agreed at the last meeting that we were going to present at some point in July. So the reason why I don't feel so time crunched is because I feel like we have at least 1 meeting in June to refine our recommendations.
Mm,
But maybe I'm just not understanding. I hear 2 things. I hear that we have to, our last meeting is at the end of May. And then I'm also hearing that we can keep doing our work until the end of June.
Yeah, I
I'm
think
confused.
by the resolution, our meetings go till the end of June. So I think we can do that and then formulate our recommendations to present sometime. It could be the last meeting in July. But we would have to meet kind of outside of this committee kind of boundaries, I guess, or per the resolution, just on our own, whether it's in person or Zoom or whatever, but to kind of finalize those, that last presentation.
mm.
And we can, yes, and we can make most of our recommendations by the end of June, and we can have our meeting in person by the end of June. The other question is Valeria, is your contract go into July? Like, can you work after the July 1st on the fancy putting it all together magic?
Yeah.
You do?
That's actually what I was just looking for, was my contract. So, but you know what? I love you guys. I'll do whatever needs to get done. So don't worry about that.
Well, then let's extend it December.
Excuse me, let's mute.
Hey, Emily, it would be interesting to see what recommendations were made by the Drug Alliance and compared to what is made now. And I think one can support the other and, say, hey, we've told you about this, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, and nothing's been done. So
Yeah.
I totally agree. And I think, when Marcella and I presented those, I think right at the beginning of our meetings with this group, that was one of our recommendations, is that a lot of those, still are very pertinent and stand on their own. So, Valeria, we could put those in, I can go through.
Let's do that.
Highlight the ones that, because there's been actually some great movement, especially like ARU. That was one of the recommendations, and that's happening. And so, and like legalization, happen. Like there's, I guess one thing I just want to highlight, because we'll see that how we categorize things in those recommendations were things that the city can do, like through policy, what the city can do through budget, what is sort of a collaborative partnership recommendation, and then ways the city can advocate for changes at a state level. So we may want to think about, as we're thinking about our recommendations, like using that same framework,
the frame, yeah.
So that it's clear what the city's role is in each one of those recommendations.
yeah.
So, but yeah, I'm happy to, put those in there.
And Emily, I know you did a screen share last time. If you could share the actual final report, because then I can update our Google worksheet with that same framework, so that then it's also even easier for you to sort of copy. Oh, thank you. Now it's in my dashboard. Perfect. Thank you, my friend.
And Emily, I
Okay.
remember the last time we talked about it, there was actually ones that you flagged that were very pertinent to our work.
Mhm.
And we had talked about that we would move those into our recommendations because they were still relevant to both works, because there's, intersectional approaches to this work, so. So are we all on the same page? I'm fading here. I need to get off.
Feel better.
Probably didn't say what I was like, didn't I say June? And then are you saying I said May? So,
Yeah, you said we had to finish at the end of May. And that's why I was
okay,
confused.
I guess I'm thinking about our
meet in June
work.
or we cannot meet in June.
We can meet in June. I just think it would be better to meet in person.
And I'm
Um,
with you until the end of June. That's what the contract says.
mhm.
That's not good. But we need you in July.
Don't worry about it. I'll figure it out.
I think just put a bug and let Julie know about that too, because there'll just be this transition from different fiscal years.
Yeah.
And I think you
So-
can do an extension, like if it's for 1 month or 2 months, and
Mhm.
have it, go through the long drawn out process, but we'll have to make sure with Julie.
Yeah. So just for confirmation, May 2nd, we're going to have Marcela's presentation, correcto? And did I hear this, that it would be hybrid? So we're meeting in person and having the presenters join us? Or, so yeah, let's
Visitors
get
will join
clear.
us on Zoom and we'll have an interpreter on Zoom.
Okay.
And so that's.
So
what-
I'll put that in my email with Julie tomorrow to confirm if we have the capabilities of doing hybrid for May 2nd. Okay.
Do we need it in person option? It can all be on Zoom for that one, because you said people are coming from different places. That
So
one
just-
doesn't need to be hybrid,
Okay,
Lydia.
beautiful.
I mean, unless people really want to, we can do it. We can accommodate. It just seems like everyone prefers Zoom.
Yeah, that's why I wanted just to get a final confirmation of what we were doing. Okay, beautiful.
Can we do a quick huddle with the alternative group just to talk about the focus group guide? Not
Yeah.
more than 10 minutes and then we all go off.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, team. I'm gonna
Thanks
open
for
up
joining
the
us, Sarah.
breakout rooms. Appreciate you, Renee. Feel better soon, my friend.
Feel better, Renee.
Thank you.
And all the best, Bruce, on your surgery.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah, for joining us. Thank you,
We're
everybody.
praying for you, Bruce. We're praying for you.
Safe travels, Gino. Here we go. Okay. what happened? Did people go? Yes. Join. Good night, Chris.
And did Renee say anything about meeting after, or she doesn't? Well, her group may take a little long.
No, she signed off because she wasn't feeling well, remember?